Hi, I'm Sara and welcome to Hen Corner. I'm one of the regular columnists with Country Living magazine. I write A Good Life in the City each month. It's a real privilege to be part of Celebrate Summer at Home with Country Living. And what we're going to be doing today, right in the middle of summer, is gathering in the crops that we've grown here and down at the allotment and showing you how to preserve them in the most perfect way. Today we're going to be fermenting vegetables. So let's go down to the allotment and see what we can find. Having an allotment, especially here in the city, is such a privilege. Whoop! We've got some amazing runner beans. Now, I'm not going to kid you. These are my next door neighbour's plot. He's got a fantastic plot, has Paul, and he's also a fantastic resource, giving me tips and tricks and ideas to help me, as it's still my first year having a plot. But he said I can have some of these runner beans, and these will be perfect for our fermented vegetables. I love pickles and preserves, especially when they're homemade, where we can take produce that we've grown, we can do some magic and then enjoy it throughout the rest of the year. Now, I don't know whether you've tried fermented vegetables before. I only discovered them a couple of years ago, and here's some that I've made earlier. Now, this one is my favourite, and I based this on a bit of a piccalilli flavours. So we started off with a bit of a sort of coleslaw mix of cabbage and onions and carrots, added in some peppers and some cauliflower, and then we used the spices that would normally go into piccalilli: mustard seed, cumin, turmeric and ginger. And this is really nice, and it does pack a bit of a punch. I love this one. This is brilliant in sandwiches. It's brilliant on the side of a salad. It's brilliant served with hot dishes and stir fries. It's great with a curry. It's not got lots of glopter in it. It's not got a sticky sauce, but it's got all those flavours, a real freshness, and that's a really nice. Oh, there's some chilli in it. I forgot to say that will probably add to some of the heat. This is my favourite one that I've made so far, and I've got a big pot of it. Now, this one is one that I tried as something a bit different. You can see it's rather red. Now, this one is apple, beetroot and ginger. And it's literally that. Now, because I grated it all up, it's really quite fine and soft. It's rendered a lot of juice. And so this is lovely. Probably more on the side of a dish rather than in a sandwich, because I think it's a bit wet for that. But the flavours are really fresh. And I made this weeks and weeks ago. So how do you ferment vegetables? I'm expecting we could think of some kind of alcohol or adding some sort of vinegar, or, how is it doing its thing? So I'm going to tell you really simply and straightforward. This is a technique that's been used for years and years and years. And preserving fruits and vegetables have always been crucial ways of ensuring that the harvest and the bounty and the gluts that we get in the summer and autumn have a food that isn't going to be wasted, and we can carry it on through and enjoy eating it all the way throughout the year. Now, I'm really nervous when talking about fermented vegetables to use the word sauerkraut, because that's the most well-known type of fermented vegetable. But let me explain the process, and then let's get started with today's recipe. The process is really simple. As with all preserved food, we're trying to stop bacteria growth. We're trying to stop bacteria from growing that will spoil the food. So if you think of jams, we use high volumes of sugar, and we boil the fruit so that the moisture is evaporated, because bacteria needs moisture, it needs air and it needs warmth to grow. So if we can get rid of some of that moisture through boiling and then use sugar in high quantities, that will inhibit bacteria growth. That's how jams work. How chutneys work, you've got a mixture of sugar and vinegar. You're cooking again to evaporate the moisture from the vegetables and the fruits, and you're cooking it down into a nice rich pulp. I love chutneys, I love the spices, I love the sweet sticky sauce. I do that every year making chutneys. So that's jams, that's chutneys. Pickles are generally made with a vinegar, and so you buy a shop bought vinegar, you can add spices, you can add sugar, and then you prepare your vegetables and submerge it in that vinegar, and it's that high acidity of the vinegar that stops bacteria growth. Other ways that you can preserve food is by drying it. Think of dried fruits, you know, the lovely raisins that we use at Christmas in our cakes. That's grapes that have been dried. So getting rid of moisture is really key, and if we add in ingredients that inhibit bacteria growth, then all the better for preserving that food for longer. So these are the preserves that I've been used to. But over the last couple of years, I've got really interested in fermented vegetables. And you know, please try it. It's really worth it. It is so much more simple. It's so rewarding. It's so delicious, and it's so good for you. So how it works is we take our vegetables. We've got some courgettes from the plot. Here are Paul's runner beans, and I've got some onions and peppers from my veg box. And what we're going to do is we're going to ferment these, not in a shop bought vinegar, but in their own natural juices. So by cutting up the vegetables quite small, we're increasing the surface area of the vegetables, lots of small pieces. And then by adding some salt, that draws the moisture out of the vegetables, the natural moisture. And drawing that natural moisture out then gives us a liquid, a liquor. We've not added water, we've not added vinegar, it's just the natural liquid juices, water that's in the vegetables. As that is drawn out through the use of salt, osmosis, pulling out the liquid from the vegetables, it's that liquid there that starts to ferment. And that liquid, as it ferments into an acid, that then preserves the vegetables that we are wanting to eat at a later stage. Now, to help me get my head around this, because I'm thinking vegetables and salt, how does this become something as wonderful as this? To get my head around it, what's really helped is because we make cider every year with apples, and we press, one of the chickens has laid an egg, we press the apples to get all the juice out, and within minutes the apple juice starts to ferment, and that's just the wild yeasts that are on the apple juice. And we know that fermented apple juice becomes cider, and we know then that alcohol that's produced in the fermentation process is a great preserver. We also know that cider can make a fantastic vinegar as well. So this is sort of where I've got my head round how it works, that we're using the natural juices in the vegetables and the fruits to make the fermented liquor that the vegetables are then preserved in. Now, I will stress this is not alcoholic, but there is a fermentation process. So all we need to do is cut these up nice and small, put them in a bowl, and then salt them, and then we'll see the next process later on. So I'm going to start off by topping and tailing the courgette. I want it to be cut in relatively small pieces, so I'm going to go down the middle there, and then quite fine. Now I want the pieces to be big enough that actually when I'm eating the preserve, I can recognise it, I can see what was inside it. But I want them to be relatively fine so that the salt can draw the moisture out and every bit gets perfectly preserved. We've now chopped up all of our vegetables and have them in the bowl. We've got courgettes, runner beans, red pepper and onions, all finely sliced, and we've added some salt. Now you can use any vegetables that you like. probably not potatoes, anything you'd be happy to eat raw or pickle, add them to your bowl, and for every kilo of vegetables it's 1 tablespoon of salt, and then we've given them a nice stir through with our hand, a little bit of a massage, and then we leave it covered overnight, and the moistures will be drawn out of the vegetables, and it's that very liquid that is our fermentation liquid. It will start to ferment over the coming days and preserve our vegetables perfectly. Here we've got a bowl of vegetables that I prepared yesterday, exactly the same vegetables, and you can see what's happened when we've left it overnight. So literally the courgettes and the runner beans and the onions and the peppers along with the salt, and can you see all this liquid that has come out of the vegetables? It's absolutely sopping wet. These are the natural juices, the natural liquids that are already in the vegetables. And as this ferments, it's going to turn into lactic acid, and it's that acid that preserves the vegetables and stops them from going bad, from going mouldy. Now we're just going to add a few things to this to really bring out the flavours and to add a nice bit of seasoning. So what we're going to do, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of black mustard seeds, 1 tablespoon of cumin seed, 1 tablespoon of coriander seed. We're going to add some Coleman's mustard. That's a new one. Should have opened it before we started. Don't cut yourself, Sara. There we go. Some Coleman's English mustard powder. How much shall I go for? Oh, there we go. That's near, yeah, 1.5 teaspoons of Coleman's English mustard. And then I've got here some lovely fresh turmeric. So I'm going to just peel back. Wow, look how orange this is. Just peel back the skin with a teaspoon. And it's very much like working with ginger. It's a root like ginger. But look at that brilliant colour. We're going to cut the end off and grate it in. Fresh turmeric. Wow, we've got some flavours in this. This smells amazing. Now, what I'm doing here is combining what I've got, what I've grown, what I've got in the fridge, what I've got in the store cupboard. I've not bought anything in, especially for this recipe. So why not see what you've got at home? See what you can combine. It's the general rule of 1 kilo of vegetables to 1 tablespoon of salt, and then the flavours of your choice. Here we go. I'm going to have to wash my hands. Turmeric really stains. Excellent. I think that's all we need for now. I'm actually going to use a spoon to stir this now. I really don't want my hands covered in the turmeric. So we stir it through, and all the moisture that has come out of the vegetables will start combining with the spices and the mustard and the turmeric. And this is now ready to pot into a jar. Now we're going to use a large jar here. I've got here a large Kilner jar, and this is my trusty jam funnel. It means that if you're a bit clumsy at the top, it still all goes down in. And we want this packed in quite tightly. In we go. Now I've got this rather full. I'm going to have to be careful with it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little trick that I've heard of. I want these vegetables to stay nice and crisp and to keep their bright colours. So I've been told that using some vine leaves from our grapevine does that trick. Because of the tannins in the grape leaves, if we pop those on top, push it down, then that will help keep the crispness and the colours of the vegetables. Now finally, I want something to put a bit of pressure on the vegetables at the top to keep them submerged in all this liquid. So I'm going to use the end of an onion. I'm going to press that in to press down on the vine leaves, and as that presses down, when the lid is on the pot, it pushes the vegetables down into the fermenting liquor. Now remember, we haven't added vinegar, we haven't added water. This liquid in here is purely the liquid that has come out of the vegetables from the salting process, and we've added our flavourings and our spices to it. So I'm going to put the rubber seal on the glass lid, and then I'm going to screw it down and explain what happens next. Ooh. Hey, very old jars. Brilliant. So what we've got here, this brightly coloured jar of pickles, naturally fermented. They're not ready to eat yet. You can see I've got them all weighed down, squashed in place with that onion. And we need to give this time to ferment. Now, the lactic acid will start to ferment because of all of the good bacterias and all of the good nutrients and enzymes that are already there in the plants that we've got here, in the vegetables. And this will start fermenting over the coming days. Now, I will warn you that during the fermentation process, carbon dioxide is produced. As we know, when you make elderflower champagne, it bubbles and bubbles, and if you're not careful, you get an explosion. So as it starts to ferment, you will have bubbles, and it's really important that you watch that it doesn't overflow. So you might want to sit this on a plate in case some of it does overflow. You might want to loosen the lid. Well, in fact, yes, definitely loosen the lid every day. Let some of that air out, and just watch for extra liquid coming out because of the bubbling, the fermenting process. But within about a week, take the onion out, remove the vine leaves, peel them back, and have a taste of your pickle, of your fermented vegetables. Because the taste will become more sour and more pronounced the longer that you leave it at room temperature. Now, traditionally, before refrigeration, these would have been left at room temperature indefinitely. But what we can do with the privileges of modern facilities and resources is we can leave this to ferment until it's our desired flavour, our desired amount of sourness from the fermented liquid. And then when it is at the right level for us, we then can store this in the fridge. And then the fridge slows down the fermentation, and it slows everything down, and it will stay pretty much at that flavour. Now, if it is that it's a bit too sour, you can add a bit of sugar or a bit of honey, but in which case, when you add that sweetener, don't leave it out at room temperature, because that will trigger more fermentation because of the carbohydrates in the sugar and in the honey. So if you want to add some sweeteners, then add it to your taste, and then keep storing this in the fridge. You can see this is actually quite wet, isn't it? And you're probably still going to get more liquid coming out of the vegetables. But all of this liquid is just the juices from the vegetables as they start to ferment. The lactic acid that's produced will perfectly preserve your wonderful vegetables, and what is a glut now will be such a treat in the colder months. So have a go. Do get in touch if you've got any questions on it. And we really hope that you enjoy preserving your bounty this summer. It's been such a delight to be part of Celebrate Summer at Home with Country Living magazine. And as with all of the Country Living magazine family, we love to celebrate our wonderful artisan producers. So do pop over to Instagram to CL Artisans and see some of the wonderful producers that are bringing a country theme to food, to clothes, to crafts. And do check out what you can buy to support them this weekend. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye.